G'day there, Saints fans. Jaden here with another episode, another weekly edition of the teams. We've got some old crew back to discuss after finally a solid win last week against the Eagles. This weekend up against the Gold Coast Suns. Let me introduce you to the crew we'll be chatting to tonight, and then we'll go through some important or sometimes not important team news after the teams have just been announced. So let me introduce Tommy, Alana, and we have Ollie as well, who's representing the Big Freeze for King's birthday on Monday. As always, I do like to sort of take a moment to shout out our sponsor, Southside Pizza. Moorabbin Locals had some on the weekend. Absolutely divine pizza. So especially for this weekend, maybe grab a bite to eat before we head into the game on Saturday night. Look, we finally got a win, guys. It's been a bit of a stretch and a bit of a tough ask this year, but I thought we saw some somewhat okay signs on the weekend. Before we jump into the team, I want to start with you, Alana, just in regards to last weekend. Were you a little bit impressed to see they had a bit of a fight back? They had a bit of, composure at the end as well. It was a close game to just get the 4 points.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly the start of the fourth when I think it was Jamie Cripps who kicked that first goal, and I sort of thought, oh, God, here we go again. But no, it was nice to see us dig deep. Bit of a coincidence, I think, with King going down and then us actually hitting some targets up forward. It was nice to see Wood get on the end of a couple and really sort of dominate that last quarter for us. That went a big way to our win, and a shout out to Windy too, who was huge on Reed. So I think those two things were really crucial in getting the job done. But it was nice to see some better ball movement in that last quarter. I think it was a lot more Saints footy-esque and what we've all been waiting for. So, yeah.
100%. And like Ollie, Alana just touched on the ball movement. I thought last weekend was probably the first time we really saw some patches where running through the middle of the ground, we were able to sort of get some run overlap. Sinks, Naz, Bonner was another one, even though he turned over a few times. But just that run and spread where we sort of didn't have that ability for the first 10 weeks. Is that a sign that this Saturday night under the Marvel roof as well that we can really develop that even further?
Well, I hope so. I actually missed the third quarter, so I don't know what changed in that time. But from when I stopped watching at halftime to the start of the fourth quarter, something seemed to have clicked in the way that the boys were running together and spreading wide and then back through the middle, sort of thing. So yeah, hopefully they can keep that form for this week.
And Tommy, I think we saw some really good performances from two players in particular, especially when King, as Alana had said, went down. Mason Wood going forward, snagged 4. But also Liam Henry, he had 9 score involvements. How important were those two on the weekend?
Yeah, they were massive. I think Wood's performance in particular had me starting to consider whether it's a play to try and start playing him up forward a little bit more. Like I have loved what he's done on the wing for the time he's been at the club, and his aerobic capacity is insane. But that aerobic capacity was also helping him burn off, his key defender and get open and get into positions to take marks and take shots at goal. And he's a good kick for goal. So that was an exciting thing to think about because we've been awful going inside 50 this year. And I know a lot of it's the delivery.
Yeah.
But, we're also not making the most of our opportunities when we do get it forward. So that was really exciting. And, yeah, Liam Henry's a gun. He's very exciting because he's so young as well, like what he's going to be for the club for however many years going forward. I'm super excited to just see it play out.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that's sort of a little bit of a summary of last weekend. Let's focus on this weekend, and I'll bring up the teams in a second. Ideally, there's no really point of me doing so because there are absolutely no changes so far in relation to this weekend's game against the Suns. We go in unchanged. Look, I'm iffy about it, if I'm completely honest, and a few of the comments and from people watching at home are as well. If you haven't commented, share us your thoughts on this weekend's lineup. Just a quick spit around. What are we disappointed with in so far with this lineup for Saturday?
Yeah, I think even though we've had a win, I think it's still important to get the best team on the park. And I sort of don't know how Seb Ross justifies his spot in the team at the moment after that 6 possession game, and his goalie kicked from less than a metre out. So that one's sort of a little bit baffling. And, we sort of harp on about gifting games, and if he's there purely as a leadership role, now that we've got our full team in, not sure how I feel about it. And I'm a Ross fan too, so a bit confusing. I probably at least would have put Garcia in if they wanted to keep Crouch. I know a couple of weeks ago, Ross sort of mentioned that he might give Crouch a couple more weeks. And as soon as he said that, I was like, I bet you he doesn't come in for a couple of weeks. Like, he'll stick to that. And now he's not in. But I think I probably would have even thrown a Garcia even as a sub ahead of Ross at this point in time. So that's probably my most baffling non-decision, I guess.
Exactly. What you were saying, Alana, like, you want to reward people that are playing well in the VFL. Like, you said 6 disposals, like you said, we've got so many better performers going in the VFL right now that could even just start on the bench and fill a hole for someone to rotate through or something like that. You just have to reward form. Otherwise, guys end up getting, disgruntled with their role, and just doesn't go well when it's time for them to, actually have a crack.
Yeah, he had.
Absolutely.
I just had a look as well. He had 4 of those disposals, Seb, in the first quarter, which means that for the remaining 3 quarters, he touched the ball twice.
And one of those was that
in the goal.
It's a cheapie. I don't like it, to be fair. As I said to you guys before we started, and I'll say it to the guys that are watching at home, I feel like that was a quick handball to King to get him another goal. He finishes the game with 3 or 4 if he doesn't go down injured. And he's, had a really good return. Mason Wood has 4. Like, I get it, the goal's a goal, but at the same time, if you can reward your big guys to really instill some confidence, especially in a game like that, so then that way, coming up against Gold Coast, who have probably got a little bit of a run on at the moment. They're in the top 8. So it's just basic stuff that, from a team perspective, I'd love. Again, at the same time, it's nice and good. Let's have a look through some of the comments, because there are a few in relation to Brad Crouch. One here from Champ Kirby, still no Crouch, FML. He's also commented, which I want to touch on in a second after we go through a few more. Showmaker in, Crouch in, Bonner out, and Ross out. I actually think he's hit the nail on the head there, and we'll discuss that in a little bit as well. Just a few more comments here. Wooden Spoon, good to have our best 2 wingers back up and running. Absolutely. The only issue with Wood that I thought is if he continues to go forward a little bit, then we run the risk of putting Seb on the wing, and Seb Ross is not a wingman. He's lined up there a few times over the course of the last couple of weeks, and I really don't like it. Chris loves the comment. What does Crouch have to do? Apparently win the lottery, and then maybe he gets a sniff at a selection. And Steve Miller suggests, I can't believe this, what a disgrace. So it's a clear sort of cut response that fans are giving. Look, if I look through last week's stats, just as I pull them up from Brad Crouch, 31 touches. He had 12 tackles, and 11 clearances. For a midfielder that's really struggled in the clearance department, I thought that would be an absolute shoo-in. And he had a really good game last week as well, albeit they won by over 100 points. Like, going back to the comment regarding Showmaker and Crouch, do we agree with that sort of being the ins and outs? Showmaker in, Crouch in, and then Bonner and Seb back out?
Yeah. Well, I think Crouch even kicked a goal in the VFL. So if Ross's argument, like Ross the boss's argument, is Seb Ross kicked the goal, Crouch kicked the goal and had 26 more touches, obviously, at the VFL, but it's chalk
and more important touches, because he had 11 clearances as well.
Yeah. And I like the call on Ari as well and Bonner, particularly now that Bonner's out of my fantasy team, so I don't have any bias there anymore. Bring in Ari Showmaker. I want to see him.
It could be worth giving him a run, because we talked so much about Bonner last week and he didn't really blow our socks off this week. So it could be worth just changing something and seeing if it helps anything at all.
Absolutely. I think the defense at the moment has been pretty solid. Even on the weekend, they had a little patch where Liam Ryan got on top. But apart from that, like, even considering how bad we have been forward of center, the defense has really stood up, and you can see those turnovers, even if it's 2 or 3 a game, that's ultimately been the difference a couple of games already. And Wilkie absolutely loses his shit. There was one on the weekend that I think Bonner turned over. It might have been Battle. And it ended up being a goal for Ali Yo or someone anyways. But Wilkie lost it. Absolutely lost it. And I mean, that's a good thing. It's what you want. But I think, Riley Bonner definitely needs a rest going back into the twos. A few comments agreeing. Bonner average Joe not lifting his team to anything special. Absolutely not. And then from Noah here, Bonner Ross needed a rest. Absolutely. So looking at that, when King went down halfway through the third, towards the end of the third, the forward line shifted. What was obviously King was the difference, but in terms of the delivery, was it a bit more unpredictable that made it more free-flowing?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, in that first quarter, the commentators just kept harping on about us bombing it into nothing. And I think we actually just started lowering our eyes and playing that brand where we're actually looking for a target rather than just that hit and hope and kick it high and hope someone marks it. And then I still don't think we have the crummers for that sort of game anyway. Like we just got Higgins, that's it. So I think it was just we changed our ball movement. We relied a bit more on Naz and Sinks to get on the end of it and push up the ground a bit more. And we saw some really good passages like that. I can't remember if it was Naz or my memory's fading, but that hit to Caminiti was just like pure.
Naz,
we just don't see enough of that, and that was just like yes.
I thought there was a bit of a shift in magnets a little bit as well. We obviously saw Wood, but that one there, Naz was probably more midfield time than halfback, and Sinks was more halfback than mid. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was the way it seemed at the game. Naz running through the middle of Optus and really being able to use his kicking ability. Do they stick with that this week, Ollie? Stick with Naz in the middle?
I would say probably not, because the Suns have a really strong midfield, and it's probably not a good idea to throw him in the deep end with that.
So, given and the Suns do have a really strong midfield clearance-wise as well, which is, again, baffling as to why Crouch wasn't selected. But is that possibly why Ross is stuck with Seb as well, to sort of give that extra big body leadership material? I mean, it's half and half, with Crouch, but
it could be we've seen he's had games in the past where he's had, maybe he's only had 11 or 12 disposals, but he's had 7 or 8 tackles or something like that. So he's been able to impact the game in other ways. So, I'm hoping that was his thinking, and it wasn't just, we need him in the team for whatever reason, even though he's had a down game, that he can contribute in other ways.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He did have
you
5
mentioned.
tackles.
Tom.
Sorry, I was just saying he did have 5 tackles on the weekend, set, but when we're comparing it to Crouch averages over 5 tackles a game. It's still.
I feel like Crouch is the sort of player that can get 5 in a 10, 15-minute span. If it's such a congested sort of game. We focused last week on Hunter Clark, first game back for a long period of time. Tom, how did you see his game on the weekend? I think he had 17 touches. I think he finished with 12 tackles himself. Bit rusty to start with, but how did you see it overall?
Overall, I was really happy with him. There's a lot of angst between my brother and I about Hunter Clark, although I have started to win him over a little bit because my brother is obsessed with him. But my biggest issue with Hunter for a long time has been his tank just isn't there. And I think, again, on the weekend, I had a look before it. It looked like he played relatively limited time on ground. But the one thing you can't take away from Hunter is that when he's on the ground, he's good. And the 12 tackles, that's exactly what we need. Stoked with that. And he was a bit rusty to begin with, but I still think we saw what we love from Hunter, where he can be in a situation where there seems like there's no way he should be able to get the ball out to, a player or get rid of the footy without getting pinged holding the ball, and he finds a way to do it. And that's it's such a rare talent to have. So I was happy with his game. I hope he gets fitter, because if he can become, if he can run games out properly and spend more time, at centre bounce, he becomes such a big asset.
Ollie, you were shaking your head. Oh, sorry, nodding your head a little bit there. Obviously in agreement with what Tom was saying. Do you want to sort of harp on that a little bit? Do you think he adds a little bit of different dimension to that midfield lineup?
He does. What I was thinking is like you can't compare to anyone to Scott Pendlebury, but he's got a bit of the Pendleburys about him in the way he just, he can slow down and get his arms free and get a handball to a player in an actually good position, not just to someone who's just going to get tackled themselves. And I think we saw not necessarily what we've been waiting for, but what we've lacked with him out injured, that different dimension, like you said before, that we really need in our game, especially in the midfield.
Absolutely. I love the comparison, albeit, a little bit fantasy land thinking we've got the next Scott Pendlebury, but his composure under pressure definitely emulates exactly that. Alana, we haven't seen Mateus for a while. We knew that he was going to spend a bit more time in the twos. He's had a really good weekend last weekend for Sandy. With him and Hunter Clark, once they're developed and, are fit and firing, how different does that midfield look along with Steele, Henry, Darcy Wilson in a couple of years? Is that a Windhager as well? Is that a midfield that you can build a premiership around?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're still hoping that Filippo turns into that A grader we so desperately need, because at the moment we're still an A grader short because I don't think Clark's quite there. But that's not to say that Pooh can't get there. He's still so young, and I think he just needs a bit of a stint in the VFL to get his confidence up and get his hands on the footy, and then bring him back. But yeah, I think that excites me a bit with Wilson, Windy, Clark, and Pooh, and then you've got Dow, and then a fit Crouch at some point, hopefully this year would be good. But yeah, that sort of made me think as well, when we touched on Clark not being match fit, maybe that's why we've held off Crouch, because we've still got Hunter, Dow, who aren't quite match fit, and Crouch arguably won't be as well. So that's the only thing I can think of is maybe why they're resting Crouch for another week, just because we do have a few sort of rusty mids there. But yeah, I think if we can get the best out of Pooh and Clark can get us consistent run of games without injury, then yeah, I think that's really a midfield to build off. Just get us one more A grader, maybe LDU.
Let's hope. Message here from Magic Beans. Max King going to be playing this week. Yes, he is. He's been named. I think he went under a test, but Ross was pretty confident in the press of this morning that he'll be lining up against the Suns, which I thought, going back, there's a comment back I'm going to bring up. Caminiti really started the game well on the weekend. I think he only finished with the one goal. But I think his form this year so far has been pretty solid. Here's the comment from Brett. Hammer was clunking everything at training, but I think it was in the first 15, 20 seconds of the game. It was down the wing, and he took a really good contested mark. And I thought that if him and King can do that early on in a game, that just changes the whole mindset of that forward line and then the midfield as well. Thinking, okay, they're gonna clunk onto some marks this week.
Yeah, I thought he looked really switched on. Like he just looked really confident out there. He might not have got his hands on it a heap, but to me, he just looked like he sort of turned a corner a bit. And it sort of doesn't surprise me if he's clunking everything at training. It looks like he's sort of going to the next level. Like I even noticed he didn't get a lot of the ball, but his handballs, he was just really quick, good decisions, really switched on. So yeah, I was really happy with his game, and he's very competitive, always has a crack. So I like him.
He's added another dimension this year, because last year we had him in as, we needed the replacement because we had so many injuries to play deep forward. And there was one, I think it was before Liam Henry kicked his goal, where he grabbed it out. He might have grabbed it out of the ruck and he kicked it on his left foot inside 50. It was just something we wouldn't have seen him do last year. So he's improved a lot on his game sense and his IQ as well.
Do you have anything to add there, Tom, or are you full agreement?
No, I agree. I think he's one that I want to see in because he always competes. Like if he's not in the right position in a contest, he'll still often find a way to bring it to ground. He's pretty quick for his size, I reckon. Like he runs and chases, and he can lay tackles in the forward 50. So I think he has he's still obviously a very raw talent, but he's got that hunger and that appetite for the contest that I think, you could say a few of our guys have potentially been lacking at times this year. So I really do just want to see that rewarded, really.
Absolutely. Jan agrees with us as well. So much upside to Camo. And I'd love him to have sort of a breakout game as well, rather than just a 1-goal, 2-goal performance. I'd love to see him sort of push King to the side and say, "No, this is my game. I'm going to kick 4 to 5," and really sort of take the limelight, because then it's going to give King the sort of urge to say, "I need to pull my finger out." And it's healthy balance of competition between the two is only going to go a long way to winning more football games. Josh has made a few comments. I'm going to bring up this one here. Ari Shellmaker should replace Howard for the rest of the year, and Brad Crouch should replace Butler and should stay in for the rest of the year. Let's dissect that, guys. First of all, we'll start with the Ari comment. Ari should replace Howard. Yes or no?
It's tough.
Ollie's a quick no. I'm in Ollie's boat here, and we'll give context in a second. Lana's like, and Tom's really on the fence.
Well, I think I lean
with you, Tom.
towards no. I lean towards no, because I think they kind of play, from what I can tell, the limited that I've amount that I've seen from Ari, I feel like they play a little bit differently. I feel like Ari's more that offensively kind of minded, bigger body down back who can intercept and then turn and go. And push up the ground and get the handball off from the bloke who's too far out to make the distance and ping shots at goal. Whereas I feel like Dougal is a lot more locked down, traditional, sort of just make sure that his man doesn't win the footy. And I'll put my hand up and say I've been critical of Dougal Howard strongly in the past.
Dougal basher.
Yeah, I have been. There have been times where I've defended him and times where I've bashed him. It's really oscillated. But I kind of feel like at the moment I'm pretty happy with what I've been seeing from him. And I haven't seen him try to hit a 45 in the back pocket going into the middle of the D50 and turn it over and cost a goal for a few weeks. So I'm just glad he's not doing that anymore.
Ollie, you were quick to shake your head on that replacement like for like. Share us your thoughts on that.
I think they just play different roles. We need a big body defender, and I'm 95% sure we didn't bring Ari in for that to the club. I'd love to see him play, but I don't think that's his role. I feel like he's more of a launch player. I don't know if that makes sense, but like Tom touched on, you can see him kicking a goal every now and then from outside 50, like a Dan Houston sort of thing, where he can launch from the D50 and get us into attack, but then he can also push up and then send us inside 50 as well, depending on what we need him to do. So I don't think the Dougal replacement would work very well.
Absolutely. Now, Alana, we're going to jump to the next part of that question, because I'm full with Ollie there. Not even close to sort of like for like sort of positions. Crouch for Butler. Again, quick fire, yes or no, and then we'll get your thoughts, Alana. I feel like that's a lot of a stronger no from Tommy and Ollie as well. And Alana's like, oh, actually, let's discuss it. Let's sort of share our thoughts, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I think again they're very different type roles, and Butler hasn't set the world on fire by any stretch. But I mean, does that mean you're coming and replacing Crouch as sub? Because that seems to be what Butler's role is at the moment. And if I'm bringing Crouch in, I want him in. So and I think everyone probably knows how I feel about the sub rule in general. And then I guess there's that debate about, do we want 2 small forwards or just one with Higgins? And I just don't know that Butler's doing enough to justify him being in the team. But yeah, I guess it's in what aspect, because obviously Crouch isn't going to come in and play small forward. So it's a bit of a strange sort of one. Do we want him in the 22 ahead of Butler? Well, yeah, in that sense, yes.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think from a list point of view and 22 point, yes. But for a replacement of like for like, no. I think at the moment our small forwards is an area that we need to improve on in the off season. I think Collard may get there, but he's still quite a fair bit away. Higgins has been good. He had a bit of a stinker on the weekend. Apart from a really good delivery to Mason Wood, I think it was in the last quarter. But Butler's been disappointing as well. But they're just not the same player. You can't put an inside midfielder in for a small forward who's good for 5 touches a game and possibly 2 to 3 goals. It doesn't work that way. But I like your thinking, Josh. I like where it's going. Just want to bring up some more comments because there's really good interactions from everyone at home, and keep them coming. I do like them. Just because there's not much team news, so we'll sort of talk about what we're sort of missing at the moment. You mentioned Alana, a big body midfielder. So Kenny suggested, stated on Facebook, make a play for Jared Berry, restricted free agent, ex-Horsham Saints, massive unit of a mid. I like the thinking, and given that they've just re-signed Hugh McCluggage, they may take a bit of a salary cap hit as well. Ollie, Jared Berry from Brisbane, good or bad?
I really like him. I don't know if he would work with our midfield, but he could. I don't know if we're looking to go after a bull sort of player. He plays that role, but I feel like we can set our sights higher than Jared Berry. Yeah, I don't know. I like him personally, but I'm not sure how well he'd fit for us.
Is he a player that's sort of reflective of the team he's in? And there's a lot of players in the AFL that are like that, where they look a lot better because they're in a really solid environment. You look at some of the Sydney players who would only be role players elsewhere, but because of the system, because of the way they manufacture their scoring and their sort of structure, that they look a lot better than what they personally individually are.
I think what we've seen with like Hugh McCluggage this year is his numbers have been down a little bit because Brisbane have been down, but Berries have been up. So maybe I'm not sure. I think he's actually in good form at the moment, and the rest of the lines aren't. So whether that's inflating his numbers a little bit or not, I'm not sure.
Tom, do you have something to comment with Jared Berry?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine if we made a play for him and if he landed at the club. But I think what we're missing from our midfield, as I think Alana touched on earlier, is another proper A-grader. And I don't think Berry is. I mean, he's 26. I don't think he's going to turn into that at this stage. He's solid. I think he's a good AFL player, but he's not what we're missing. And I'd be fine if we got him and someone else. By all accounts, it seems like we've got a war chest to be trying to potentially do that. But if it was him alone, I don't think that fixes our problems. I think we really need to be the problem is trying to attract players to come, to be honest, with the way we're performing at the moment this year. But I think we need to be shopping in the in the realms of the Andy Brayshaws, the LDUs, that kind of area.
I like your thinking with that because I was thinking the same thing. I think if you can get Berry as number 2 option and then get your LDU or I personally prefer our Andrew Brayshaw. I think he's an absolute class. I think if he came into our team, he'd be the captain straight away, and then you replace Crouch and Ross with Brayshaw and Berry, and you still got Steele in there. You got Henry who can pinch hit, Mateus, Windhager. I think that starts to become a little bit more of a fantasy midfield that we can actually see something happening with, rather than just we've got one good midfielder and then the rest are just plugging away and hoping for the best. I think that's where we should be going in regards to that one. Let me have a look here. Just some more comments. Let me have a look here. Comment here from Josh. I just don't think players are paying for bad performances earn your spot. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Seb Ross, 0.1A. Riley Bonner, 0.1B. Just being a little bit sort of lackadaisical and just casual with the team selections, I think. Let me have a look here. Yeah, perfect. So looking at that, Alana, I'll jump back to you. So we sort of went through pressure a little bit earlier, but Steele had 15 tackles, Clark 12. We had 84 as a team. Was that a massive difference? It was a massive difference for this week compared to the whole season, but is that something that can be sustained going forward?
Yeah, well, probably my biggest stat too was our inside 50 tackles. It was something ridiculous like 17 when I think against Melbourne it was 4. So that alone, I think, just showed the difference, because I think that's where we struggle so much is our inside 50 tackles. The ball just comes straight out. And I think 80 tackles is the benchmark. I feel like back in the day, that's sort of what we were renowned for, being this sort of competitive team that was relentless and just pressure, pressure, pressure. So I think that should be our aim each week, 80 tackles, especially when you've got guys like Steele more than capable. And then we had, guys like Caminiti and Wood, who I think they had 6 tackles each as big guys. So that sort of sets the standard. It's like, if these guys can land 6 tackles, Hunter on his return game had huge tackle numbers too. That just sort of sets the standard for the rest of the team. So yeah, I don't see why we can't set that as the bar moving forward.
You agree with that, Ollie? Your thoughts on the pressure? I think it was that on one Wood against, or for 2 seasons under Rats, but the pressure sort of slacked off a little bit this year. Is it sort of going back to what we're good at?
Oh yeah, like that's what we loved watching was our pressure game in the last couple of successful years we've had. Last year and probably 2020, we were up and about. We were making rundown tackles. Like there was the first goal that I think it was Hammer kicked in his career against the Bulldogs. There was a rundown tackle and there was a couple of handballs and he kicked it from outside 50. Like that's what we want to see.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that Alana's suggestion of the aim of 80 tackles is perfect because that's the sort of number that we're going to end up seeing faster ball movement with. Like if you can get those tackles, get the ball loose, get running with it, I think that's just a great brand of football to play. And that's what we've seen be Saints footy recently.
Absolutely. Now, Tom, just before we discuss the Gold Coast Suns, just for a little bit, last week we kicked 12 goals as a team.
Yeah.
First time, I think, since the Collingwood game. North Melbourne game we did, but I sort of put that aside a little bit. But since a proper game against the Pies, again, is it sustainable? Is it just a fluke? We've struggled to probably kick more than 9-10 goals a game over the last sort of 2 months. Was it King going down, being more unpredictable? How did that sort of come, and can we do that going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure how it sort of came. I guess, you look at it and we kicked 8 goals in the second half compared to 4 in the first. So, yeah, maybe, and 5 of those in the last. So, yeah, maybe King going down forced us to change our approach a bit. I feel like sometimes I see King sort of calling for the ball just to be kicked long. And I don't know if maybe that's part of our ball movement issue is that, we see that and we're just launching rather than lowering the eyes because it was so noticeable in the second half that we were lowering the eyes and we were, hitting up targets and getting ourselves into, positions, inside 45 metres to take shots, set shots at goal, which is so much more likely to convert than if you're 60 out and you're just bombing it and hoping someone's going to take a pack mark. But, is it sustainable? I don't know. I hope it is because you can't win premierships kicking 8 goals. Like, you just can't. But I think that's one of our biggest issues at the moment is we just don't score enough. And, yeah, we can be as good defensively locking down as we want to be. But if we can't put a score on, then even if we have locked another team down, they're always in the game because we haven't put a score on. So it's definitely the thing that we need to fix. Is it fixed off the back of one game against West Coast? I'm not entirely convinced, but I liked what I saw more in the second half than I have for a while this season.
Yeah. You sort of hope that it's the one breakout game they needed to say, okay, well, this is working, this is what we can do, and we can, do that going forward. Let's discuss the Gold Coast Suns for a little bit. I know we're here more to discuss Saints, but I sort of want to get a little bit of an opinion from those that are at home and you guys as well. Start with you, Alana. We're going to jump to the Gold Coast forward line. They got Ben King, who's, I think, equal second or third in the Coleman at the moment, absolutely firing. And then they've got the smalls in Bailey Humphrey. Ben Long's been in some really good form. How do we shut down their forward line this week?
Yeah, look, I think Ben King is probably the scary one because, what are we looking at? like as much as I like Howard, I just don't know that he can. Like King's just so athletic, so he's a bit of a worry there. I'm almost wondering if we sort of try and double team where we can, like with Battle and Wilkie. I'm not sure. And then Ben Long, it's disappointing because I was really hoping to see Stocker line up against him. I really would have liked that matchup, but it'll probably just have to be Webster. And then to be honest with you, Gold Coast is probably the team I watch the least. So I'm not too familiar with the rest of their players. Like I know sort of Lukosius. I can't even say his name. Lukosius. So I don't know too much about their sort of B grade players, is what I call them, because I just don't spend a lot of time watching the Suns, if I'm honest. But that's why I think I know Ben King's dangerous, because I think I pay him a bit more attention being Max's twin. And then Ben Long, obviously no. So yeah, I don't know. I probably can't give you too much about the opposition this week.
That's fair. I like it. I think you're right though. Ben King, Ben King, sorry, is the danger weapon there. I also look at it. I know you said Howard's a little bit, iffy, but I feel like this year we haven't been taken advantage of by a big key forward, apart from the Bulldogs game, which I think Cordy played that game, if I'm not mistaken. I think he can hold his own, and if we can limit King to just 2, and then Long to 1, and really get their midfielders to make an input, then I think the defense has done their job. I've said it every week, and I'll continue to say it. The defense of ours has been absolutely outstanding, I think, compared to what they're dealing with on a weekly basis. Ollie, let's jump into the midfield, to the middle of the ground. You mentioned before they've got a pretty decent midfield. What are you worried about? What are your options? Do we send Windy straight away to O'Reilly or Anderson, or what are your moves as coach?
I would send Windy to whoever starts the game the best, if that makes sense, because any one of those 3 could go off in any game. One of them has a down game most weeks, and the other 2 are really strong. So I think if we could pick someone at the start, but in the first quarter, if Matt Rowell has 3 or 4 clearances or something, send Windy to him and try to negate his impact. Other than that, I think it's trying to stay tight at the contest and not try and create too much until we've got the ball, because sometimes you see a player push off and the ball might not drop in their hands, and then their opponent gets the ball. With the Suns, that's a really dangerous thing to have Tuke or Flanders or Anderson, Rowell, whoever's running through there. They've got good ball users. They've got good clearance players. So I think if we stay tight and defend well in the midfield, then we'll be a chance to knock them off.
Yeah, I feel like their midfield and their run game is sort of similar to GWS and what they call the Orange Tsunami. Not exactly the same, but they do like to run in waves and really, create that overlap run. As you said, they've got Flanders, Miller, Rao, who's sort of that, first disposal out sort of guy. Noah Anderson, I think, is an absolute star. And then you even got Sam Closey on the wing, who's a really good player. Joel Jeffrey's a good player on the wing. David Swallows, an age veteran now. So they've got some really, really handy players that can use the ball well. It's just about creating the turnovers. They are the highest turnover team in the league, and then getting them on the back end, because I don't think they're a good two-way running team at all. Tommy, your last mate. Let's look at their defense. A little bit unknown in their defense at the moment, but given they've got 2 bigs plus Mac Andrew, who's been in some really good form over the last month. What's your concerns there? Do we lower the eyes like we did in the last quarter compared to just bombing it long?
Absolutely. So the thing that is going to shit me to tears this week is if we just bomb the ball in and Mac Andrew takes 15 marks, because that's what he's been doing. He's been tearing it up. Teams are just bombing it in. He's peeling off. He's so good at taking those intercept marks. Maybe we'll get a goal out of one of them, because he is also susceptible to doing stupid things and turning the ball over in the back half. But I just don't want to see us just bombing it long and Mac Andrew having a field day. Like we saw, I don't know, I think it was last year maybe, or a couple of years ago, we had a game that we lost against Hawthorn where we just did that to Sicily all day. And it was so frustrating to watch. So I think like lowering the eyes is so key. Particularly when a backline has a good intercept, player like that, you can't just feed into that game and, inevitably turn the ball over when you're going inside 50. And I think just in general, that should be the way we're trying to go regardless. He's lowering the eyes.
I do agree. I thought there was a period of passages against West Coast where we sort of just got through that, where we bombed it a couple of times. Barris took a few, McGovern took a few, and that was like the flick of the switch to be like, all right, we can't do this anymore. Who's going to lower the eyes? And that's when we hit Henry. That's when we hit Mason Wood, Caminiti. And I thought it was a real sign of maturity for them to be proactively, looking at that and going, okay, well, this isn't working. Let's change it up. And I was in the same boat as you. If Mac Andrew has even 10 intercept marks, then I'm going to be absolutely filthy. Absolutely filthy. Jack, looking from home, bombing the ball in, that Saints footy. That's, look, absolutely correct. I think we've been doing it for about 7 or 8 years in a row now, which is just wonderful. So hopefully Saturday night we can really, use the ball well, lower the eyes and really start to hit some targets inside 50. Now that we looked at the teams, we've had a nice discussion. Again, thanks for those that are at home commenting away. Let's go through our under the microscope. I loved going through this because it worked out really well last week. I think it might have been you, Ollie, or it might have been Pete, suggesting Mason Wood under the microscope, and he just came out and said a big up yours to us and really dominated and took the game away. So start with you, Alana, under the microscope this week. Who was it for you on Saturday night?
I would like to see more from Higgins. So he had quite an okay last quarter last week. He did some nice things, but I think he needs to do that more often. I know his position's really tough and he might only get a handful of opportunities a game, but I think it's making the most of those opportunities. And it doesn't always help with our forward entry. But if the team as a whole can sort of work off that last quarter, I think Higgins, there's no excuse then to sort of, get in the game and have a solid 4-quarter performance. That would be nice. Maybe 2 or 3 goals and just lively down there.
I think for him and Butler, though, the way we're playing probably suits them more than anyone else. The fact that we're just bombing it in, there's not many intercept marks, there's a few, but ideally the ball's coming down. It's a crummy opportunity and it's not making impact. So absolutely love it. For those that are home, share your thoughts. Who's your under the microscope? Ollie, over to you now. Who is it for you this week?
So last week I went ball movement. I didn't take a player for under the microscope.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do the same this week, but I'm going to put the fans under the microscope because we had such a poor turnout against Freo, and that was a game that should have been winnable for us. It was a Saturday night. There's no reason not to go. The Suns have about 45 fans. Like, there's going to be no one there. Like, Jake said on the podcast this week, there's no excuse. And I heard that and I was like, that's perfect. There is no excuse. It's Saturday night. We're playing a team with no fans. We can just make the stadium rock. Like, we need to be loud. We need to urge the boys on because the Suns are in decent form this year. So yeah, get down to the game and get loud, really. That's all I have to say.
I love it. I love it because usually it's me saying that sort of stuff. So the fact that people are coming on and saying it as well. And you're absolutely right, though. Saturday night, peak. I know it's cold. It's, getting into winter. But what better way to sit down with, a bunch of Saints fans around? There's not going to be Collingwood fans. There's not going to be Bulldog fans. There's not going to be Essendon. Like, it's purely just going to be St Kilda fans, apart from behind the goals on one end. So get around everyone, have a few drinks, have a few laughs, and really cheer the boys on. And it would definitely impact them. You walk out on a Saturday night at 7, what time they come out, like 7:15, 7:20, and you see half the stands or even more than half, empty. You're like, if they're not going to show up, why should we? So absolutely love it, Ollie. A few comments here from Jack, who's a regular for us commenting. Surely Bonner, honestly, they should swing him forward as a defensive-like role on Flanders. Any turnover, he could kick a goal from outside 50. I don't mind it. I was thinking earlier that possibly even a sub for Riley Bonner, just so that way he can come on as a last quarter, get him some extra fresh legs, and purely for that reason, get him on the wing and try and kick a goal from 50, 55 out or hit King on the lead a couple of times. Chris, Seb Ross, I think that's where Tommy's going to go, but if not, I again agree. I like the thinking for that one. Anyone else that are listening from home, share your thoughts. We love to have a great discussion on the impact the players can make, and you know who needs a bit more of a rev up. Tommy, was I right?
Yeah.
I know it.
I felt like you were going to go there as well. So I was going to say, I hope I'm not stealing one from you again.
No.
But yeah, I mean, like before we jumped on, like the live stream, you mentioned 6 touches for Ross, and I thought you were joking. I thought that was like an exaggeration, and I checked the stat sheet. I couldn't believe my eyes. He actually had 6 touches. He plays midfield. I can understand that if you're a small forward, right, or a half forward running up and back, you know, or maybe even on a wing. Maybe on a wing. Sometimes you have those days the ball just gets kicked over your head. Bloke plays midfield. Like, how do you have 6 touches in a game of footy playing midfield? It makes no. I don't understand it. And I don't understand him getting selected again. But I would love for him to prove me wrong. I would absolutely love for Seb Ross to prove me wrong. So that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. And it works. We've had a couple of times where we sort of had the discussion, and then that week, I think Alana called out Higgins early in the year, if I'm not mistaken. And as I said, last week, Pete called out Mason Wood, and he came out and said, Pete, you can zip the mouth for a little bit. And this is what I could do. A few comments just before I give my thoughts. Bailey, we need King to have a field day and keep bumping his confidence. Look, I always love when King plays Gold Coast, because I love for him to wake up and be like, I am going to absolutely dominate, to show, you know, Ben, this is how we do it. Like, I'd love there to be that inside his head. No one will ever know. Only one person knows if that is the case. But for me, if that was me, I'd be like, no, this is like a game I would circle when the calendar comes out and the season draw, to say this is the game that if I'm going to play one good game for the year, this is it. Dale suggested, why not play King on a wing? Richardson nearly won at Brownlow. I don't want to see King on the wing. I love your thinking, Daryl, but King needs to be in that forward 50. He's too strong of a mark, too strong of a player to be playing on the wing. It's wasted talent, especially when we've got Wood doing that role at the moment. For me personally, I'm going to throw our captain under the microscope. I thought we saw last weekend some captains really take the game away from teams. We saw Cripps do it against Port in Adelaide, and then we saw Bontempelli do it against the Pies, albeit he had a little bit of a help, but in that last quarter on the Friday night, still he had a solid game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he was absolutely disgusting, but I think he went a bit missing the first sort of quarter and a half, really came to life in the second. I love for him to just be able to take the game on by this, neck of the line, or whatever the phrase is, and really just dominate and put the boys on his back. And I think when he does that, and then it gives Sinclair the ability to do it, gives Naz the ability to do it, and then it's a roundabout effect. So that's my thoughts on Under the Microscope. Still for me, Seb, Ross for Tom. Tom, you going to say something?
I was going to say, just on that, he did go missing in the first quarter. He was my captain in AFL Fantasy. He didn't register a statistic. He did not. He was on 0 touches, tackles. And I was looking at 0 for my captain. So I sent him a rocket on Twitter. I didn't tag him because I'm not going to abuse the guy.
One of those.
But I sent it out there, and he responded. So that was really good to see. But like,
surely he didn't look at the Twitter on halftime.
What was that?
Got on a cheeky phone and tweeted. I saw your Twitter comment at halftime. It's like, Tom's wanted me to play a bit better, so I'll pull my finger.
Obviously, I'm claiming there for sure.
Absolutely. And there's a few comments. Steely's all right, never been dominating Cripps type captain, but works his ass off. Look, I get it. Absolutely. But I'd love to see just, our captain really, as I said, take the game away from the opposition. For Ollie, it was the fans, and then Alana for Higo as well, which worked wonders last time. Fingers crossed that happens again. So thanks for everyone listening through. Before we finish up, we always get a result prediction for this weekend. Alana, we'll start with you. Gold Coast Suns, they don't travel well. Marvel Stadium, we know how much Hardwick loves Marvel Stadium. Is it possible? Can we get 2 on the trot?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think they've won away from home all year, so I do know that much about them. And if there's anything I do know, it's their midfield is going to be what we need to stop. So I'm all for Windy shutting down the next victim and us winning by a nice 3 goals.
3 goals isn't nice. That's stressful. So some of us are getting a bit old. We need one that's like a 10-goal win. The heart can't take it anymore. For those that are watching at home, share. Oh, sorry, go Alana.
Sorry, I just said I'm being realistic.
Yeah, love it. Paul shared his thoughts. Saints by 12. Everyone listening at home, share your thoughts as well on this weekend's result. Jack reckons Saints by a point. Again, Jack, the heart can't take that anymore, man. Ollie, what's your thoughts this weekend?
I think coupled with the Suns haven't won away this year and Gemma hating Marvel, I think if we can turn up in the first half, I think we blow them out the water. And I'm going to go Caminiti to kick 4 and we win by 5 goals. That's ambitious though. So
it's ambitious. I like it though. I like it. Look, I think Caminiti by kicking 4 is probably the ambitious one. I think Saints by 4 goals is more realistic, but we'll see. Chris shares his thoughts. Saints 89, Gold Coast 63. Sort of similar boat to you, Ollie. 4-goal win. Tommy, last one for you. Who's winning this week? How much by? Share your thoughts.
I'm going to give it to us on the basis of Gold Coast poor travelling and Dimmer's Marvel phobia. So I think we get the chocolates.
I like it.
I think we get the chocolates. I'd love for it to be by 5 goals or more. Realistically, I just don't think we score enough at the moment for it to be that way. So I'll give it to us by 20 points.
20 points. No, I like it. Last comment here from Jack. Flashback to the game where Saints beat Gold Coast by 3 when Gresh kicked a goal from the sideline. I remember that. I was at the MCG. I think it was a Hawthorn-Essendon game, and I was watching it on top of level 2. And be a similar result this weekend. I think you're right, Jack. I think it's going to be a bit close. I just want to reiterate what Ollie said earlier. I think for the fans, get down there, go support, because I feel like this is a game where we win this, we can build a little bit of momentum. We've got Brisbane next week up at the Gabba. Yeah, it's a tough ask, but they've been in some ordinary form this year. A premiership hangover without the premiership. I think that's a real opportunity to build three in a row. All of a sudden, the tides change. You go into a bye full of confidence. You start getting some players back. Mateus getting in form. Crouch returning. Getting some goals under King and Caminiti. Like, the tide can actually change if they, work towards it one game at a time. I think it's possible. I think this weekend, I feel like it might be a bit similar to last year against the Suns. It was a bit of a disappointing crowd. I think it was a Saturday night at Marvel Stadium. Mitch Owens kicked the snap around the corner at 40 meters out. I think we won by 25, 30 points. And I get the feeling that we can do something similar to, in that regard again this weekend. So my opinion, Saints by 25. And I think King to kick 3 or 4 and really show us who the best King is in AFL at the moment. Fingers crossed. So as always, thanks for those at home watching and commenting. I really love sharing your thoughts on the Saints, good and bad and the ugly. It's always made for a good discussion. To our sponsor, Southside Pizza, as I said, Saturday night, get a nice slice of pizza before the game as you head into Marvel Stadium. And then you three, Alana, Ollie, and Tom, thanks again for your thoughts and opinions on tonight. Always love sharing it with you as well. So get down to the game Saturday night, 7:30 p.m., Marvel Stadium. Rug up, but get around. Let's make it loud. Let's make it crazy. And let's hopefully get another Saints win. So from us here, thanks for joining in. And as always, go the mighty Saints.
Go Saints.
Go Saints.